This is Souk Business Landscape.
Hello and welcome to Souk Business Landscape, where we unpack the week's biggest stories shaping Africa's economy and global markets. I am Olubide Shokoya. Of course, I'm not the only one. I have John Oloruntobi. So glad to have you this morning.
Good morning. I'm John Oloruntobi, and I'm glad to be here as well.
Yes, we also have Mokhtar Amin, who will be joining us virtually. Nigeria's public debt could rise by 40.61 trillion naira to reach 193 trillion naira if all loan requests submitted by President Bola Tinubu in 2025 are approved and fully disbursed. Now, according to an analyst, this potential surge represents a 26.6 increase over the current debt stock of 152.4 trillion naira as of June 30, 2025. Now, this includes 71.85 trillion naira in external debt and 80.55 trillion naira in domestic borrowings. The Debt Management Office used an official exchange rate of 1,529 naira 21 kobo per dollar for its latest assessment. The rising debt profile reflects growing fiscal pressure and foreign exchange exposure. Analysts warn that while the funds may support infrastructure and reforms, Nigeria risks worsening its debt sustainability unless stronger revenue strategies and spending discipline are implemented. Stronger revenue and spending discipline. I like those two words. Stronger. You know, it's quite easy. It's quite easy to say, okay, let's go borrow certain amount. We want to use it for this, that, blah, blah, blah. And okay, this is our debt ratio to GDP. This is what we're going to get from oil revenue. This is what we're going to get from non-oil export. But how are we looking at the fact that different administrations come in and go? And most of the time, they leave this huge pile of debt for the next administration to come in and, have headaches. Let's put it that way. What's your thoughts on this? Because if you look at it now, our current debt is about 152.4 trillion naira, which is made up of external and domestic borrowings, and the exchange rate which was used. Thank God the exchange rate has come down. Now it's about 1,400, but at that, when it was analyzed with 1,529 naira per dollar. And this spike reflects cost of financing government programs, subsidy removal, and of course economic reforms, which some people have been saying, okay, we are seeing this, we're seeing. Now, Nigeria is already spending 90% of its revenue on debt servicing, which is sustainable, without major revenue growth. Now, I understand the fact that there's a new tax reform law coming in by 2026, and we hope that we will tighten every other thing, bring both the formal and the informal sector into this tax bracket and be able to generate more. Just yesterday, the customs in Port Harcourt was declaring outrageous, profit and all that. And I know Lagos is going to follow suit, and maybe some other states are going to. But all in all, we should put a limit or a caution to our borrowing. We have about $500 million still. I don't know whether it's approved yet or not, which is in the House right now, waiting to be approved. And we have a whole lot of other debt. We have about three concurrent, three concurrent budgets that we're running. And a lot of people have complained that, where are we going? What's your thoughts on this?
So it's quite explanatory. Let's talk about facts. Every growing country or nation borrows money.
Definitely.
At least to an high percentage if you look through it. So Nigeria borrowing money is really not the issue. The issue here is, how do we manage these resources? We borrow for infrastructures, we borrow for to stimulate growth and see how we can cushion inflation generally. So borrowing is not really the issue. It's how we now you put this into or have this generate revenue back for us. Now, if you look at some of the infrastructures that the government, so to say, put these monies into, you question how this, of course, brings about productivity that then generates revenue. I'll give you an example. If you go along the what do you call it, international airport way, there's a new what do you call this stuff, road speed bump that was put there. Now that's been done by taxpayers' money, but that has increased the traffic on that road. You spend about 1 hour on that in that traffic trying to get home. Now this affects productivity, and productivity affects revenue to the smallest bit of explanation. So when we borrow these monies and we put them into infrastructure to try to grow the economy, how do we spend this money? Accountability, transparency. We hear a lot of projects. I mean, if they approve most of this, collections of money and all of that, we're talking about over 193 trillion. Should I say, 193 trillion naira in total sum. Now, and this is, the moment your debt is threatening your revenue, then this affects the sustainability check, and of course, international investors begin to get wary of, should we come in, because the people that come in to come and sell their investments to are probably suffering. So it's not really about borrowing; it's about what we do with this monies, how we go about managing the management of these funds. They do. Look at the overhead bridge that are all used in Lagos, or that put out there in Lagos, are not being used. So how do you make sure that these funds are directed and channeled to the right, structures, right systems, right should we say production that affects the common man, affects the people that you are borrowing these monies for?
Yes.
And then the manpower, the production, the productivity, the efficiency generates the revenue that you look for. The reason why Nigerians are crying every day about this tax, that is because they're not seeing the results in return. And this is what we are saying. If you look at US, for example, I don't know how much they are.
US borrows a lot.
They borrow a lot of money, but you see the Americans, they carry that, they're flying their shoulders everywhere because they are whatever the US government are borrowing affects them in the right way, positively. The Nigerian government, kudos, they're trying. But there's a place for transparency. We just see these monies fly around. We're borrowing this money. We're borrowing that money. How does it affect the common man? That's just basically it.
All right. How does it affect the common man? Now, loans actually could boost the road. You look at the Calabar construction, which is supposed to bring a whole lot of business activity through that route. We have power, we have rail, we have the blue rail, the red rail, and the green rail. If you look at the Kaduna train, which was revived shortly after it was now found out that there was a derailment. If you look at so many other infrastructures that the government have actually brought in that actually started working well. The Lagos-Ibadan train service was a beautiful one. I take it anytime I'm traveling to Ibadan. I take it and it's quite beautiful. The same with the Kaduna one and all that. But, over the time, we've had train derailment and all that. And, yes, the Nigerian railway service, they're putting in their best. They're trying to do a whole lot of things. Like you said, a whole lot of country borrows. I was trying to pull up the infographics of countries with the highest borrowings. I think US is one of the countries that is leading. It's over a trillion. Put together, the whole world is over $1 trillion or more than that they are owing. I think US is leading. We have Britain. We have this and that. So it's not as if it's not like countries don't actually borrow. But when you borrow, you know that it's just okay. Let's try and put it in a simple use. For instance, now I want to go into shoemaking. I think I have an idea. I put up a team. I approach financial institutions, people who I feel that can borrow me this money. Okay, borrow me this money. I have this business, and this is what I stand to. Of course, whatever I'm borrowing, what I stand to make, the profit of what I stand to make should be, if not triple or 4 times what I'm borrowing. So that, because I'm not just going to calculate what I borrowed, I'm going to calculate overhead cost, production, everything, the total of the logistics, every other thing. I'm going to calculate it together from my profits. And if business goes well, I'm able to pay back.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, even in future, I can always expand. But if business does not go well, I run into a whole lot of debt. I have bad credit. Nobody wants to lend anybody money who has bad credit. Now, these are some of the things, and it's amazing why the World Bank, the this other AFDB, and the rest of them, they are quick to borrow Nigeria a whole lot of money, and you seem to wonder why. And these are the people who told us to remove subsidy, deregulate the naira, do this, do that, and yes, all came with good intentions, but how well has it worked? We deregulated the petroleum market, the petroleum sector, and there's a whole lot. Now there's 15% import duty on petrol that some people, marketers, are saying no. But if steered properly, then again, a lot of experts have also complained that we should not only, because we've been depending on oil for a whole long time, and I think this is part of the reason why we keep borrowing and borrowing, because we feel we are sitting on a landmass of oil everywhere, and it cannot run dry. And I hope it doesn't run dry one day. So that's one of the things. But I like the fact that now a lot of revenue is coming from non-oil exports. And also with this 30% value addition, whereby all raw materials must be processed at least 30% before they are being exported. I hope that a whole lot of things will come in. But let's bring in Onyepriye Kumale. Onyepriye Kumale, good morning and welcome. What's your thought on this?
We will never, I think, first of all, one thing that we need to consider, or one thing that we need to put into consideration when we are talking about the government and the speed at which it has borrowed and how these monies have been used, we first of all need to highlight where we are coming from as a country and how this administration got into office and was able to, within a short frame of time, put some certain things in order. What exactly are these? First of all, in the previous government, before the end of 2023, or before the inception of the current administration, we were spending about 90%, if not more, of our revenue to service the national debt.
Yes.
And yes, when the current administration came in, with regards to the new economic policies that it had put in place, of course, it also went up borrowing because of some very, very critical infrastructural projects that the government needs to carry out, which itself will facilitate some form of revenue and income. For these are capital-intensive projects that are going to facilitate income here in Nigeria, facilitate the ease of doing business in the country, that will also enable other businesses to thrive. Because remember, we have also spoken that one of the responsibilities of the government is to create the right atmosphere, to create an atmosphere that should reflect the right business, economy, and development ecosystem for which other businesses can easily and possibly thrive in. Because when businesses thrive in a country, they have the wherewithal to provide jobs, to increase their employment base, and also the manufacturing base should also increase. So when the current administration came in, one of the significant achievements was that we reduced, or we used to spend 90% of our revenue to service debt, but right now as we speak, it has gone below 60%. It has gone below 50%. And that is a plus. It explains that we are making progress. Yes, it is also good that when the government goes up borrowing, the relevant institutions, and including the media, should always ask questions and probe the reason why we go up borrowing, and if these monies that were borrowed were used for the particular reasons for which they were borrowed. Remember that now that we have borrowed, or now that we are borrowing, what are these? Recently, we talked about the government going to borrow to facilitate SMEs and their operation, most especially in the agricultural space. And you may want to ask, what could be the reason for that? Or why do we need that? Agriculture used to be the area that brings forth massive employment to Nigeria. More than 30%, it used to cater to more than 30% of base in Nigeria until when we discovered oil, and most of the investors in that space, including the government itself, turned a blind eye and after oil and completely neglected agriculture. Now, we have seen that the current administration, or I will also say the previous administration, had put in some form of work to trying to revive the agricultural base so that people can go back to farming. We make the farms very, very attractive for young investors, for businessmen, for businesses to go in there. And we've seen some multinational corporations who are doing excellently well in that space. We've seen how that some very, very responsible state governors, some subnational leaders from the northern part of the country are really taking advantage of that in where I'm talking about the collaboration between Niger State and Lagos State. Now, if you look at the current administration, we are trying to create an ecosystem where young entrepreneurs will not only be the pioneers of startups, technology companies alone, but they'll be also pioneers of agricultural firms, of organizations that could, erect silos for the purpose of storing of goods that must have been harvested and cultivated by those who already farmed.
I'm glad we're looking at infrastructure because that's where I'm going. We have a couple of infrastructures that we have gone to source loan for that. Well, successful or not successful, I'll leave that to you to judge. Let's start off with the Calabar Road. It's still under construction. It has not been fully completed. And we went to borrow. Then later on, we did an additional borrowing. Let's all look at the rail system. We have a rail derailment. The Kaduna rail derailment, rather, which we reported, that was last week. We also have the Lagos-Ibadan own that, is being vandalized. And we have so many other infrastructures like that we have gone to borrow money from. Shouldn't there be some sort of audit, some form of report, assessment, quarterly, to know that, okay, fine, this is what, and it should be made public also, not just have an assessment indoors, made public that this is what we borrowed, this is what was utilized, this is how far we have gone. What's your thought on that?
Okay, first of all, you made references to the Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway which is a very, very massive and gargantuous project that the current administration put in that has started. Now, this project is very, very massive. It goes from Lagos to far somewhere in the southern part of the country, and we have extension from the southern part of the country to other regions, to other parts of the country. It's a very huge project. And within the space of 2 years, the first phase has been completed. I think we should acknowledge the administration for that speed. Yes, we acquired a loan for that purpose. But the first phase of the Lagos-Calabar Highway has been completed. And it is obvious that if we can do this much within this short period of time, I tell you, in the next 2-3 years, we would have gone somewhere very, very remarkable in fulfilling that project. And the loans are not for waste, because this specific Lagos-Calabar Highway is a very, very capital-intensive project, and also a project that will facilitate the movement of goods and products from one part of the country to the other. It's also a project that will also facilitate the development of other projects. The ripple effect of it is going to give more development to other business ventures, to other business activities through the corridors for which this specific road infrastructure will pass to other states. So it is not a loss. You equally made references to the railroad project. Now, let's understand that before now, or quite a long time ago, the rail project and the rail system is something that governments of nowadays, or current administration, are trying to revive, to bring back to life, because there were systems that have been put in place before, but their neglect by previous governments, by previous administration, led to the collapse of that specific system. But if you can see the body language of the current administration, you could see that its effort and the channeling of more funds to reviving our railroads is quite massive. And I cannot begin to itemize the benefits that we are going to enjoy as a country, the developmental impact it's going to have, the commercial, the way it's going to foster commercial activities across every commercial nerve center in Nigeria. The benefits, the economic benefits, the commercial purpose benefits, and the developmental effects are quite enormous. You referenced the Abuja Kaduna rail, where we experienced a derailment, and also recently the Warri Itakpe rail, where we encountered and experienced a derailment. Now, do not forget also the Warri Itakpe rail had a challenge in a few months ago, and the Nigerian Railway Corporation actually went to put that in order to rectify these challenges and brought it back to life so that it can serve its economic purpose. But it's derailed again. Yes, these are systems that we are trying to revive again after leaving them moribund for quite a long period of time. So we should not be it should not be a surprise if we experience some form of bottlenecks and some form of challenges while addressing these pertinent problems. But it doesn't mean that the loans that the government acquired from multilateral organizations, either from multilateral organizations or local organizations or from the domestic economic space, it does not mean that we are making no use of them. It doesn't mean that they are being channeled or misappropriated to somewhere else where they are not required. No. You and I can see the massive work David Umahi in the Ministry of Works is doing. The roads that is being constructed from the southern parts of the country to the northern parts of the country, and how David Umahi in the ministry and as the Minister of Works is holding most contractors to account. And some of them, because a lot of accountability is required, not only from his ministry, but on the part of the contractors. Some of them are even being sacked. Some of them are even being, hold to account for them to account for the monies that the government had, given and paid them for them to complete the specific phases of this project. And if we can connect Nigeria together through rail system, through road infrastructure, to the extent that we will be able to decongest the way and manner economic activities, seem to be focused on one part of the country or on specific states across the country, because we felt they are more developed because of the way and manner they have electric power and they have good roads and good road infrastructure there. If we can replicate the way we have this road infrastructure and other things that give birth to economic activities in the city of Lagos, in Abuja, and in River State, in Kano, if we can replicate that in somewhere in Osun State, if we can replicate that in Kebbi State, in other core northern states, in Delta State, in Bayelsa State, and in some other states, including Ogun State and Oyo State, then we will be able to decongest the business activities in these specific core states to these other states, so that we can have a spread of economic activities across the country. And also, I must not forget to bring into your notice that recently the Minister of Blue and Marine Economy, who is the former governor of Osun State, the former governor Adegboyega Oyetola, himself has not been doing badly, because recently there was a publication coming from that specific ministry that holds a very, very strong key to expanding and completely, opening up the Nigerian blue and marine economic space. And recently, the marine and shipping space equally, got some form of trade plus. The activities of trade through that route in Nigeria had expanded. And we could see some of the trillions of naira that recently the government received into its coffers through the activities of the blue and marine economy. What I actually wanted to point out is that the Minister of Blue and Marine Economy has said that we are going to move away from putting our focus and attention on the Tinkan and Apapa ports here in Lagos. We have to start looking at the ports that we have in Warri, Delta State, the ones that we have in River State, the other ports that we could have.
Thank you very much for that. Coming to you, John, what other alternatives to funding do you think Nigeria could look into to reduce reliance on loans, internal, external loans, especially?
That's a quick one. Quick answer, quick response, or question rather. Well, going back to what we said earlier, everyone borrows, so we need to focus more on what we generate as revenue and how we generate our revenues and how we, lock on this lacuna or loopholes on how monies are being spent. Efficiency. Let's invest in efficiency.
Yes.
OEPA mentioned something about roads and what the minister is doing. Amazing stuff. But when you borrow money and you put into infrastructure, maintenance is important. If not, you go back to borrowing.
Yes.
And also you have a time frame for returning this money's back. So imagine a government borrows a certain amount of money because to do a particular road, and it's done within 2 years. And within the 2 years, some part of the roads being damaged due to lack of maintenance or lack of responsibility around maintaining this particular infrastructure. You go back actually to go and borrow more money. So what happens is, because the road is bad, it takes another some months, a year or plus to get this money back to be able to fix this to fix this road. And the people that were applying this road that are supposed to generate revenue back to you are suffering. You give an example, and I saw something like that online as well. With I think I mentioned it here, how potholes affect efficiency of the human side of capital. You go to work every day. A delivery driver that's supposed to make about 15 to 20 deliveries a day gets to do only 9, and of course you are going to taxes this particular company. You're not getting enough profits from them they're not getting enough profits for you to be able to tax them. So we need to ensure that maintenance is key when we, look out to borrow money or to, lend money for infrastructures, because once you have these things well maintained, it gives you enough time to be able to repay instead of going back to the same, borrowers to keep borrowing more money. If you look at most of the projects we have in Nigeria, we are borrowing money for projects that we're yet to even return the previous borrowed money. So we need to look inwards with regards to how we can generate revenue from the development infrastructure that we already borrowed money from, which means that we need to maintain our loan loan focus on projects. What project are you borrowing money for? How long do you have to pay back? And if you're paying back in the next 5 years, the next 3 years, next 10 years, it means that we cannot borrow more money to keep this infrastructure running. So we need to actually focus on maintenance as well too. That's the way you can get your money back. I mean, I'll give an example. You buy a house on loan, or you get a house on loan, and you are supposed to pay back in 2 years. And you get a house, you don't maintain it properly. It means that you have to spend more money to get that property to renovate it. So, and then you are probably on a tight budget because you're doing the road right now. Are you going to put a toll on a rail to ask the citizens to pay? No. Where you're going to get the money back from is swift movement of these trains from one state to another to carry out business. And that way, when people are actually happy with their movements, their goods are getting to where they're supposed to get to on time, pick up, transition, and drop off is efficient. You start seeing the results from their profits. And once there's good money coming in, you can easily tax these things, and it goes back to when you have to return this money. So it's back to the efficiency lacuna or gap with regards to borrowing money and putting this into infrastructure.
Yes, well said. Maintenance. I think that's one of the culture we need to imbibe. Take, for instance, the Lagos Ibadan Expressway, which took a whole lot of years to get done, and administrations after administrations came in to fix this. But finally, it was fixed. I think there's a whole lot of things that we need to look at. Now, nobody's saying that we shouldn't borrow money. It's just that we need to be clear. The borrowing should be clear, trackable projects. Also, boost revenue through tax reform. Just like I said earlier on, with the new tax coming in, a whole lot of things will be put in place to ensure that people pay their tax. Nigerians must also pay their tax, because when you pay your tax, government is able to put this tax into work, into infrastructures and projects to make things smoother, to make transition, business smoother. Also, we also need, this one is a no, it's a no-brainer for the government. No, we need to cut wasteful spending. That's one of the things that, kind of gets Nigerians edgy, because when you hear what legislators are doing, when you hear how much is going into their, to buy cars, to buy this and all that, Nigerians those, and you hear, Aso Rock is being renovated, the vice president's house is being renovated. These things puts Nigerians on the edge. That why is it that it's just the government that is, getting new things, getting new wardrobe change over and all that. So we need to cut wasteful spending. Also, I think we need to sort of I've always said this, data transparency. We need to periodically have some form of audit, some form of assessment, and make it public that this. I'm happy that the House, the legislators are doing some form of assessment, as to NNPC and the rest of them. They are, so I think we should encourage more of that, so that we know that, okay, this is what is being borrowed and this is what we are using it for. I think Oyinpre has something to add. Oyinpre, let's get your final thoughts.
So one thing that we need to put into consideration is this. Remember very, very well that the Lekki Toll Gate Road, monies were borrowed to build that road. I remember vividly how that road was before the government came in with the loan it borrowed to build that road. It was a concession. If you look at that road, it is very well, yes, a concession, yeah, but it was very well built. But you know what? Lagosians and Nigerians were being tasked to toll. They pay toll on that axis of the road. So you see, because that road serves lots of businesses and smooth movement of goods and services, a lot of vehicles ply those roads. You have huge and big organizations there. But yes, you will never see a time where that road is bad. The reason why, because Nigerians and Lagosians that uses that axis of the road, they pay toll. And when they pay toll on that road, those monies are not only, they are used to also pay the workers on that road and also facilitate the maintenance of that road. The road that was built from Western Avenue down straight to Ikorodu, very, very long stretch of road. Initially, the arrangement on ground was between the government and those from whom they collected the loans to facilitate the building of that road, or what triggered the laying of that road infrastructure was initially that they were going to be tolled. That's why if you look at the road very well, there are different strategic areas where the tolling system was erected. And that was for the purpose because they are going to get tolled from Lagosians and from those who will be using that road. And they are going to keep on maintaining that road year in and year out. That's why the road was built in a very, very intentional way that you could see vividly that this was intentionally built and it will serve its purpose. So if the government is going to be laying road infrastructure across the country from one state, like the Lagos-Calabar Highway, it's going to get from Lagos to other states and from that other state to different states. So the government will need to set in a tolling system. That tolling system would now be used as a way or as a means for not only servicing and maintaining that road, because Barrister Toby there is more adept towards the road, the maintenance of our infrastructure. That money will also be used to maintain the road, and also a part of the money will be used to fund and to pay back to resettle the loans, and so that it will not serve as much burden to the government. And we must look at it from that perspective. Now, if the government takes the initiative of tolling the systems, the road infrastructure system in the country, Nigerians are going to cry out. But you know what? There are sometimes that even if Nigerians are going to cry out, they are not on the saddle, on the seat of government. So they will need to understand the purpose and the reason why government will take certain economic actions that sometimes you use a road, you need to pay for it. Look at the BRT system and the Lagos rail system that runs across different parts in Lagos State. They pay, and it serves as a system that can sustain itself as a result of the revenue initiative that is attached to the monies that were used to establish that system. So these are initiatives that the government will normally are going to take. But most times, we just hope that we're not going to be getting a backlash from the government. And if you look at these systems that I just referenced very, very well, not only are they sustaining themselves, they are capital projects that brings money back into the coffers of the government.